Hello everyone. I had a lot of teachers in my life, but only a few of them were the kind to be part of my life and go to family dinners. Out of that very small group, I am saying goodbye to one of them today. He was the person who made sure that I had a firm grasp on history and helped me with my studies. I, it's going to be hard for me to accept that loss, but I will do my best to understand that he lived a long life, um, regardless of the very dire circumstances that occurred to him back during the Second World War. I felt it was appropriate to look at a piece of history today. He always told me that I should continue my studies in history and talk about it. So I decided to take a look at railroad infrastructure in the United States. It's a piece of history that's not really talked about, and I think it is important to talk about. I'll give you the crash course, and then if you want to learn more, I'll link this in the description for you. It's a very good video on it. Okay, you're going to want to look at this right here. This was the regulation part of the trains, and this was more or less the final nail in the coffin. The US did for a long time rely on trains for transporting not only goods but people throughout the cities. Right around World War II is when they started disappearing. There was several reasons for this, this being one of them, and also just because of America greed. By American greed, I mean the corporations. You'll find it mentioned in this video as well, but basically Firestone, GM, and a bunch of the other companies, what they did was they bought up all the streetcars and then junked them. It's because of the corporations and because of these acts that you don't see the train infrastructure we once had. If you look at any of the maps from prior to World War II, you'll see how extensive the train system is in comparison to today. This right here is a classic example. This is a local train for DFW. Look how small this is. It only goes from Fort Worth to the very edge of Dallas. That's it. That's just one local train. That's pitiful. But yeah, so, people are always wondering why we don't have a train infrastructure. It's because of a very classic lesson in history. It's not just greed that's playing a part, it's also just the continuing mistakes. A lot of people, even my history person, has said that history is a book of mistakes to learn from. The United States, unfortunately, continues to never learn from these mistakes. As time goes on, they just continue to build more roads, and they completely ignore that train technology is really good. If train technology was brought back, we'd be living in a much better society all around. It's going to be hard to make that push, though, considering that any of the companies I just mentioned, plus any of the newer ones from after the train days, have lobbies in our political system. They're not going to want to let go of their money. That's essentially what this is. So that's unfortunate to know because there's a lot of benefits to having trains. And now I'm going to talk about that. Okay, so we're going to use this train that you just saw just a moment ago to kind of give us a rough idea of what things would be like if we had train coverage. The TRE, while may be short, is not that expensive. It's $12 for all-day one pass. Regional, of course. Local is going to be reduced. Going to be $5 going one way or the other. and you can tell that it has its zones divided up so you know where that cost is. But the point is this: look at the cost, $12 a day. So let's just say you work a 9 to 5 job, which is usually Monday through Friday. That's going to be, that's 5 days, yeah, 5 days. I had to double check myself. So let's take 5 times 12 and just see what the cost comes up to, and it's 60. Okay, so $60. I drive a Ford Focus. Yes, I know, it's not the world's best vehicle, but you know what? It's all I could afford. My Ford Focus takes basically just that to fill up its tank if it was near empty. So $60 for a full tank of gas is about what I can expect. So already this train is the same cost as what it would take for me to get the fuel. Then there's other costs that you have to think about. You have to think about insurance, you have to think about maintenance of the car, and all of that. If a car part breaks down and you're out of the warranty, it could easily cost $500-$600 depending on which part it is. So a train is already reducing your costs by a lot. This would be extremely feasible for people to use every day for work, assuming that we had trains like we did back in the old days. There are other other factors to consider here, not just in the cost, but also just the well-being and safety of people. If you work a 12-hour shift, you will know how hard it is to try to get back home after that. It's exhausting. With a train, you don't have to worry about that as much because it's mostly automated, so you could just take a nap and not have to worry about anything. Then, as far as safety factors are concerned, I'll give a few examples on that front. As years have gone on, drunk driving has unfortunately became more commonplace. If trains were commonplace like they were prior to World War II, I don't think we would see as many drunk driving incidents, because if everybody was relying on the rails, you wouldn't have that as much. Now, granted, you're not going to be able to completely get rid of cars because, like I said, you're not going to really get those corporations to loosen their grip on their money. But at the very least, you could try to reduce how many cars are on the road. Another safety factor is people who work at night. A lot of the crimes that have happened are at night for some of the people. So if you are able to get on a train with other people at night, that's going to reduce the chances of you becoming a victim. There's a theory that you can read, and I'll link it in the description as well. I did forget to put it up, but it's called the crime triangle. It just outlines the factors that result in a crime occurring. But yeah, so you can see that there's just different aspects of why trains are good. Now, this is just a local train. You know what? Let's go ahead and look at one more example. I see I failed to pull it up, but there's a private company in Houston, Texas, working on a bullet train. Their goal is to get the bullet train to connect to Dallas. That would normally take between 4 and 6 hours, depending on what part of Texas you're in, assuming you're near the DFW area. This train can do it in, I think they said it was 85 minutes? Sounds about right, yeah. So a bullet train can go faster than you can drive on a car. The cost of that train, when I read the news, said it would be $120. So already that's a lot more of a cost than the local train, but again, it factors into how much of a cost you're saving, because if you don't have to worry about a car, then you're not having to worry about the other costs. One factor that I am not seeing in the news articles about that bullet train is whether or not it has beds. A lot of the Amtraks in the United States that do go long distance have beds in them, so people can actually sleep comfortably during the long rail rides. So if that's a factor too, that's a good way to be able to attend work or even events in other cities. But I can keep going on with examples. I think that you get it. I will go and end the recording here. Thanks if you listen to this, and I hope that the generation after me will remind America to quit making mistakes and learn from the past.